Thank you to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. I feel like this is how I start every video now, but Japan's focus tree in Hearts of Iron 4 used to be tiny. And most of you know that this is the updated focus tree from Waking the Tiger, so it used to be even smaller. But just recently, Japan finally got the treatment it deserves, and its focus tree was expanded to a truly impressive size. Wait, what do you mean that was 8 months ago? Okay, as was the case with the Italy video, I won't be covering every single possible way to play this country. Instead, I'll showcase most of everything this focus tree has to offer in 8 different scenarios. And once again, this is all in Vanilla Hoi 4, but I used this mod to enhance the visuals a bit. I also had every expansion up to Thunder at Our Gates active, but No Compromise No Surrender is the one that updates Japan. And one more thing before we start. Japan, like many other countries throughout history, has had some serious beef between different branches of its military, and it can be really hard to decide which one you should prioritize. If only there were some way to see what each branch can really do on the ground. Oh wait, there is! And that is by playing War Thunder, the sponsor of this video. War Thunder offers the most comprehensive vehicle combat experience ever created, and it's free to play on PC, consoles and mobile. Whether you're looking for fast-paced PvP battles or authentic simulation, War Thunder is the perfect game for fans of military history. Command over 2,500 unique tanks, planes, helicopters and ships from 10 of history's mightiest armies. Witness the evolution of military technology from 1920s biplanes to the cutting-edge war machines of today. Every vehicle has been crafted with exceptional attention to detail and features extensive customization options. With realistic graphics and an authentic soundscape, every battle feels incredibly immersive. One of my favorite features has to be the X-ray view, which lets you see exactly how much damage your shots caused right down to the individual components. Join a community of over 95 million players and start playing today on PC, PlayStation, Xbox or mobile by signing up using my links in the pinned comment or the description. New and returning players who haven't played in the last 6 months will also receive a massive bonus pack on PC and consoles with the exclusive vehicle decorator Eagle of Valor, 100,000 Silver Lions, 7 days of premium account and more. These bonuses are only available for a limited time, so don't miss out. Since Japan's centuries-long isolationism was ended by the Americans in the 1850s, Japan went through an astounding transformation from a feudal shogunate to an industrialized great power that could rival even the likes of Russia. During World War I, Japan fought on the side of the Entente thanks to the Sino-Japanese Alliance. At this point, the Japanese Navy was powerful enough that they could easily take over all the German colonies in the Pacific. And that was basically Japan's role in World War I. For quite a while, it looked like Japan would fully embrace democracy. During the period of Taisho democracy, a lot of power was transferred from the old elite to the hands of the parliament. But as the democratic system failed to solve issues like the Great Depression and rampant corruption, many lost all trust in this new institution and began hoping for a return to a more traditional and authoritarian form of leadership. So, the trend of democratization in Japan was starting to reverse, which leads us to 1936. The current political situation in Japan is pretty complicated. The Prime Minister, who is still technically the guy in charge, is often being influenced by the Emperor. Then there are the army and the navy, who are growing more powerful and more popular by the day. Also, they kinda hate each other. As the imperial army's influence grows, the country is becoming more and more militaristic. But why exactly is the army so popular? Well, one reason is that they get things done. In the early 1930s, China was having some issues, and the Kwantung army saw an opportunity. Without explicit permission from the civilian government, they marched into Manchuria and just took it. And that's how we got Manchukuo. But Manchuria isn't enough for the army. They would love to continue and take all of China. And we're not exactly opposed to the idea. One thing Japan has always lacked is natural resources. We were one of the first nations outside of Europe to industrialize, but this issue had always hampered our growth. And how are we supposed to become the rulers of Asia and the Pacific if we can't build up our industry? Oh, did I forget to mention that we kinda believe that Japanese are the best people in the world and are destined to take over all of Asia. So, the prime ministership is not a very powerful position anymore, and it's not a very stable one either, because after a failed assassination attempt by a military faction, the prime minister resigns and gets replaced by this guy, who then a year later gets replaced by this guy, who then gets immediately replaced by this guy, and he is more than ready to let democracy die. He also agrees with the military that we should invade China before they get any stronger. Even though the army is itching to go, there is something we must do first. We can force the state of Mengjiang to become our puppet. A longer front line will make our invasion easier. Okay, now we can let the army provoke a war. And looks like they clashed with the Chinese soldiers almost immediately. We'll blame this on China, and if they don't compensate us, we'll declare war. And as I expected, it's war. So, since it's only 1937, it's completely fair to ask, how prepared are we for this? Well, our army is a lot smaller, but way better equipped. And we have a pretty huge navy, which lets us easily invade the Chinese coast. You know what? I'm pretty sure this war will be over in like 2 years. Okay, the war is not even close to being over. The Chinese defense is a lot tougher than we expected, but our main problem is our lack of fuel. Our tanks and planes have nothing to run on. But apparently, the Navy has a solution. If we look a bit to our south, we'll find the Malay Archipelago, one of the most resource-rich areas in the whole world. Taking these islands would put an end to our shortages. Then we could continue pushing into China and take them over too. It's a flawless plan. Well, there is one kink. These islands are British and Dutch colonies, and the Brits are good friends with the Americans, who along with Britain have massive navies. So we would be taking on China, the Allies, and the United States at the same time. I mean, that sounds doable, at least with a bit of help. The Allies are already at war with Germany and Italy, so we might as well strengthen our ties with them. We signed the Tripartite Pact and solidify our alliance. But we're not joining the Axis. We have our own thing, the Greater East Asian Co-Prosperity Sphere. We'll also go fully fascist, so now we'll be known as Imperial Japan. So, let's begin preparations to strike south. We demand Indochina from Vichy France and the puppet Siam. Then, we'll plan a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor to ensure our naval dominance at the start of the war. Okay, it's 1941 and we are ready. The Americans were caught completely off guard in Hawaii, and we can immediately begin our naval invasions. We take the Philippines, British Malaya, and the Dutch East Indies. We also push into British Burma and India. And damn, you really couldn't hope for a better start than this. At this point, we're basically a military dictatorship, so why not just make the leader of the army, Hideki Toshio, the prime minister? But what about the navy? They too have been pretty instrumental to our success. Well, yeah, but their leader, Yamamoto, was killed by the Americans. So, there's that. With tons of new territories, we better organize them into puppet states. This way, we don't have to micromanage everything, because we're already dealing with quite a lot. Multiple fronts, constant naval battles, tiny island invasions. I can't really keep up with everything. And... oh crap. We lost a pretty large chunk of our navy to the Americans. But we won't give up. As long as we... well, I'm actually not sure what we can even do to win at this point. But we'll never give up. So, it's been a few years, and we're basically in the same situation. Except our allies are about to capitulate, and we're actually losing ground. The Americans keep hopping from island to island, and it looks like even the Soviets are gathering troops around Manchukuo. It's not looking good. I guess we'll change our prime minister one more time. Okay, Emperor, these are the only options right now. Either we can surrender, like cowards, or keep our honor and continue fighting to the bloody end? Which one will it be? Yeah, I heard the Americans are planning to drop the sun on us, so I'd rather surrender. Luckily, we only need to lose control of one of our core states to start surrendering. So let's just do that now before something unthinkable happens. So, the war is over, and we lost everything. Manchukuo went to the communists. Our Pacific colonies gained independence. The Soviets took our northern islands, and we became an American puppet. But apparently, the last thing is only temporary. The Americans wish to make us into a strong counterforce against communism in Asia. Instead, we will just disband our entire military. So, after all we went through, we had to go back to democracy. But at least the emperor got to stay. I know things might look bleak right now, but if we adapt to our new situation, like we always have, I'm sure that we can one day prosper again. Even after an unimaginable loss, we will never give up. Okay, we almost had it, but we overplayed our hand by taking on too many countries at once. If we want to win, we must fight our enemies one at a time, divide and conquer. We again start with China, and this time we'll make sure that we have a fully organized collaboration government ready, which will make the nationalists capitulate a lot faster. Now when we start the war, we'll be sure not to half-ass anything. This campaign must have our full focus, and trust me, it pays off, because this time we actually make the Chinese United Front capitulate in 1939. Finally! We'll reorganize the government into the reorganized government. With the successful conquest of China, we're already one of the strongest powers in the world, but we're not even close to being done. Now that the UK is at war with Germany, it's time to strike south. We annex Indochina and prepare naval invasions into Malay. Then we declare war on everybody, except the Philippines, because apparently the US doesn't really care if we start conquering all their friends' colonies. And there really is no reason to bring them into this, one enemy at a time, remember? With the advent of a new Great War, we decide to consolidate the country under a new Prime Minister. This time it will be the leader of the Navy, who, surprise surprise, didn't get killed by Americans. We really need a naval genius in charge when we are taking on the largest fleet in the world. Luckily, the Brits are so dumb that they only send half of their navy to protect their colonies. We can easily sink their ships with our superior numbers. They then bring the other half, which we also destroy. And now they have basically no navy at all, and we have free rein to do whatever we want. We conquer British Malaya and the Dutch East Indies, and then Australia and New Zealand. On the mainland, we push hard against the Allied troops in India, until India too capitulates. And just like that, we are the undisputed masters of Asia. Now we can create a ton of puppet states who we can then invest into. After they have built up a bit by themselves, we can then later annex them. At this point, the Allies are just barely hanging on, so we have essentially already won this war. We also managed to put an end to the inter-service rivalry and unite the branches in the development of a new superweapon. Since the Soviets are knees-deep in a war with Germany, the only country that could pose any kind of threat to us now is the United States. It's better to take them down sooner than later. We decimate the American Navy in a few decisive battles and start hopping from island to island until we reach Hawaii. Now almost all of the Pacific belongs to Imperial Japan. As we have achieved everything we set out to achieve, we can annex all our subjects and proclaim the Empire of Great Japan. Okay, time to end this war. We have built 2 nukes, which we will use on San Francisco and Los Angeles. We follow that up with a massive invasion, because apparently 2 atomic bombs barely even shake American morale. But total occupation is something they can't shrug off. And finally, we'll help Germany end the communist threat to our north, mainly so that we can take some of their land for ourselves. Victory is ours. Asia, the Pacific, and half of North America now belong to the Empire of Great Japan. we are now one of the 3 superpowers ruling the planet. But our allies couldn't hope to match our greatness. The combined population of all of Asia, unified under a single state, would be unstoppable. As long as they agree to do whatever we say, we could easily take over the entire world, and we're still the only nuclear power. But do we really, after years of war, want to start a conflict against basically the rest of the world? Yes, for the Emperor. Some might say that our rivalry with China is too deep to be mended, but I say you're wrong. If anything, we could easily unite against the threat of communism, so that's what we'll do next. Do you remember this specific Prime Minister? No? Well, I don't blame you. He was replaced after only a month. But the reason he got the position was due to a pretty heated debate in the parliament. After the controversy, we decided to replace the Prime Minister with a puppet of the military, which ensured their rise to power. But what if we instead chose a bit more restrained approach and just pressured the ruling cabinet to resign? If we do this, we get a new Prime Minister who is really keen on creating the Japan-China Manchukuo bloc. We suggest the formation of a Sino-Japanese anti-communist pact to nationalist China, and despite our decades-long rivalry and the fact that we occupy a decent chunk of their territory, Chiang Kai-shek chooses to accept our proposal. But wait a second, what about the Kwantung army? They're still counting down the days until they can attack China. But since we literally can't prevent them from doing that, we'll just ask them to wait another 730 days. Yeah, we're kicking the can down the road. The main purpose of our new alliance is to put an end to communism and warlordism. The nationalists get right on destroying communist China, and we'll help them out on that. But for some reason, our ally doesn't seem to care about the warlords. They're not doing anything to subjugate them, and we need a unified front against the USSR. I guess we need to take things into our own hands. We'll justify war goals on one warlord at a time. But to do this, we must first become fascist, so we'll do that. Okay, our first war goal is ready, and... Wait a second, did China just leave our faction? What? Well, I guess our friendship just isn't meant to be. You know what, we'll still take over all the warlords, but give them to Communist China, which is actually our fascist puppet. Since the Chinese United Front doesn't exist, it's actually a lot easier to conquer China. We can completely surround the nationalists, and now when the Kwantung army lose their patience, we'll strike China from all sides and make them capitulate in just a few months. While all that was going on, we had to pick a new prime minister. We have tried both Tojo and Yamamoto, but there is a third option, where the emperor takes direct control. So, let's try the hidden fourth option, where a guy supported by the thought police takes over. Yeah. Because we had completed this focus and the civic faction was influential enough, this guy had the backing to become the prime minister. Now he decides to empower his party, the Society of the East. It's supposedly more pro-German, but this hidden focus doesn't really change anything other than our flag. Okay, we have China, but we still need resources. This time, instead of striking south, we'll strike north and take out the communist threat at the same time. I mean, there are at least some resources there. Before we declare war, we have an opportunity to stage a coup in Mongolia and steal them to our sphere. We can also do the same thing in Tibet. Okay, now we'll invade Russia. As you could guess, fighting in eastern Siberia is absolute torture, and we can barely even move our armies due to the lack of supply. Luckily, we have an option to offer a conditional peace to the Soviets now that we have pushed deep enough. Okay, let's send the terms, and... the Soviets accept. Perfect. So, we have won. The threat of communism no longer hangs over us, and we control almost all of East Asia. There is one more thing I want to do to our most loyal ally, Mengukuo. We'll make you into Super Mongolia. And we'll give Manchukuo to China. And there. While others might continue fighting, we can finally enjoy some of that peace. Kinda like the US. Hey, we already tried one unconventional alliance. How about... Oh, okay. Well, at least we have achieved our primary goal, and the thought police will make sure that no one can criticize anything we've ever done. Every Japan game starts with a coup attempt by the Imperial Way faction. They are a group of traditionalist militarists who wish to return to an era before Western influence and give the emperor absolute power. The coup kinda fell apart because no high-level officers supported it, and even the emperor condemned the attack. But what if the plot was successful? In February 1936, many high-ranking civilian administrators, including the prime minister, are killed, and the majority of the army decides to support the coup. A general from the Imperial Way faction becomes the new military prime minister, and the country is renamed to Japanese shogunate. I think they might have jumped the gun a bit on the name. Even though the main goal of all this is to put the emperor in charge, it looks like he himself doesn't really support our cause. We could try to pay him, but we could also just kill him. Okay, maybe house arrest is good enough. Let's make his brother the emperor instead, as he fully supports us. Now we must also choose whether we want to keep the shogunate or let the emperor take direct control of the state. Well, we've come this far, so why back down now? We are now yet again the Japanese Empire. The emperor's first move is to subdue the Kwantung army so that they don't drag us into any unwanted wars. Then he decides to tighten our control on the continent by annexing Manchukuo and integrating it and the Korean territories directly into the empire. Our immediate future will be mostly guided by two ideologies: Japanese-dominated Pan-Asianism and anti-communism. Our primary goals are to destroy the Soviet Union and increase our power in Asia. Taking on the Soviets alone would be extremely difficult, so we need to sort out our faction situation. Someone suggested that we should go back to isolationism. I mean, that is pretty anti-Western, but it's also really stupid, so no. We could also establish an anti-Soviet defensive pact with Poland. Even though we're pretty good friends, I'm sorry, a flimsy alliance with Poland is just not going to cut it. Our only realistic option is to join the Axis. Germany has shown clear interest to invade the Soviets at some point, so joining the Axis could be our best chance. But before we can commit to a war, we must sort something out. The old emperor is still in house arrest, and he might one day attempt to reverse everything we've achieved. So we're just going to kill him. But crap, his wife found out we did it. This could be the end of our rule. Unless we offer her the position of Empress. Sorry Genka, you're out. Empress Nagako is now in charge. And she unlocks a hidden branch of the focus tree with some interesting buffs. Okay, before Germany can help us fight the Soviets, they want us to help them beat the Allies. Okay, I'm sure it won't take too long. Germany starts the war by invading Poland, and we immediately launch naval invasions into northern France. The French forces surprise us with their weakness, and we march into Paris in just 25 days. And France is out. Now we just need to invade our old ally. After a few battles in the English Channel, we managed to secure naval dominance and land troops on the British Isles. Their defenses are just barely better than France's, so they managed to last a whopping 2 months. And just like that, the quote-unquote World War II is over. And all it took was 4 months. We let Germany and Italy take everything in Europe and Africa, while we took everything in Asia, the Pacific and the Americas. The Axis is already unstoppable, so it's time to destroy the Soviet Union. Even though they don't really have any chance against us, fighting in eastern Siberia is still really painful. The war is a total slog, and I don't know if I want to be stuck doing this for years, because the rest of Asia is waiting to be taken over too. We could offer the Soviets a peace deal. If they give us what we want, they can fully focus on Germany. It's a win-win. Great. After we very honorably abandoned our allies, we can now finish the conquest of Asia. First, we claim the territories of China and conquer them. Then we do the same to the Middle East. Now all that remains are the American colonies. Luckily, we can easily waltz in from Canada and take over the US in no time. Actually, while we're already here, we could just take over the Americas entirely. 3 continents and 2 oceans now belong to the Empress of Japan. But do you remember our 2 guiding principles, specifically Pan-Asianism? That's right, we can painstakingly, one state at a time, core all of Asia. Now no one can deny the divinity of the Japanese Empire. So, being the emperor of all of Asia was something Emperor Showa was willing to pass over. Well, at least his wife gets to enjoy that instead. Okay, things have officially gone too far. We are a democracy, and we will not be intimidated by the thugs in the military. This coup attempt was the last straw. The army will be reined in. Luckily, our Prime Minister managed to just barely avoid assassination. Or not. Okay, another guy took his place, and he is ready to take away the special privileges from the army. But I have a slight hunch that they won't be taking that lying down. So we must secure as much support for our cause as possible. And also convert all of our divisions into artillery only. Okay, I think we're now ready to stick it to the army. We revoked their precious peace preservation law, and they respond by starting a civil war. But we are ready to take them on. Considering the fact that they are literally the army of this country, they're doing surprisingly bad against the civilian government. But still, this war isn't exactly cakewalk. We fight for a few months, and eventually our enemies surrender. Now we can start cleaning up this mess. Unfortunately, Korea, Taiwan, and Palau declared independence, and the remnants of the Kwantung army have taken over Manchukuo. Once the time is ripe, we will finish them too. During the civil war, Emperor Showa decided to side with the army, so his reign is over. Luckily, his brother was on our side this whole time. Not Yasuhito, but Nobuhito, and he will be our new emperor. Now, for the first time in ages, we can hold truly free and fair elections. 2 major parties compete for the most seats. The winner will be either the Liberal Conservatives or the Liberal Progressives. Since it doesn't matter too much who wins, let's go with the Conservatives. Then, there are a total of 5 candidates for the new Prime Minister. This guy seems like the best choice. Now that we have all the internal stuff sorted out, we can start looking outwards. The remnants of the old regime are still holding on in Manchuria. They for some reason let us keep this one port city, so we can pretty easily invade them and finally end this civil war for good. Now, we'll rekindle our old friendship with the Brits and join the Allies. Apparently, they're on the verge of war with Germany, and they'd really like our help. Sure, we'll help you out, but on one condition. You will give us your Southeast Asian colonies. Oh, I didn't think they'd actually do that. Well, thank you. But there is one other thing we want from you. We help you take out Germany, and you help us take out China. Yeah, now they are the most authoritarian regime in Asia and a threat to all democracies in the region. So it looks like the sides have completely flipped. I think we should focus on Europe first, so that we can free up our allies. We send millions of troops to France and form a defensive line along their border. Once Germany blitzes through the Low Countries, they get completely stopped by our forces. Then Italy joins the war, and this will be the downfall of the Axis. We launch a few naval invasions, and after a while they switch sides, just as we expected. While Germany is a much tougher foe, after they have exhausted their resources enough, we can start pushing back. In the end, it takes 2 years and millions of casualties for Germany to finally surrender. The war in Europe is over. Everyone agreed to install democratic governments in all the Axis countries. Now we can finally focus on China. But I have to tell you something. We haven't actually declared a war on them yet, because why should we? One enemy at a time, remember? But first, we have to deal with whatever's happening in Siam. There. Sorry, France, but you ain't getting your colonies back. Now it's your turn, China. We launch offensives from every direction. Even though the nationalists have defeated the communists and puppeted many of the warlords, they are still surprisingly weak. Or maybe it's the fact that we have a massive international coalition on our side, but I don't know. After about a year, China too surrenders. World War II is over. A new democratic government was installed in China. We might be taking a pretty big risk in creating such a powerful state, but we need everyone we can get against the expansion of the Soviet Union. The Cold War is going to look a whole lot different in this timeline. The United States never ended their isolationism, but nearly all of Europe and Asia have been united against the Soviet Union that never took part in World War II. It would be really interesting to see how this Cold War would play out. Okay, the Soviets probably just lose even faster. If I'm completely honest, there was a lot more we could have done with the previous path, but I wanted to keep that run a bit more subdued, because now we're going off the rails. So, we rein in the army and win the civil war. This time, we could let the liberal progressives win the election, and we also make their leader the prime minister. Before we continue, I'll take a slight detour and quickly mention two secret events that can happen with these two leaders. If you choose Tokugawa as your prime minister and then your enemy invades the home islands, Tokugawa will gain emergency powers and your flag will change to that of the Tokugawa shogunate. But if you choose the admiral prime minister and let the army faction get dominating, they will just straight up kill him and make one of their guys the new prime minister. I guess old grudges die hard. Neither of these secrets have any drastic effects on your country, but I wanted to mention them. Okay, now that the new state is secure, we'll finish the fight and take over Manchuria. Now we'll go all in on Pan-Asianism. For that reason, we won't be joining the Allies, even though we maintain good relations with them. Instead, we'll want to form our own faction, the West Pacific Treaty Organization, or WIFTO. Doesn't really roll off the tongue. But before we can establish this alliance, we must start a war with China. So we'll do just that. Now we can form the WPTO and invite every nearby democratic or non-aligned country to our faction. Then we can once again ask all the colonial powers to hand their Asian subjects to us, and for some reason they all just agree. Our faction now stretches from Indonesia to Afghanistan. Okay guys, let's all gang up on China. Now we get to the interesting part. We can begin centralizing our faction with common customs and currency unions. After that boring stuff, we unlock the option to integrate our faction members into an even closer union. What this means is that we can ask them to become our puppets, and everyone will yet again just say yes. Now there is one final step. We can form the Greater East Asian Federation, and then integrate all our puppets. And by that, I mean we get to annex them and then gain cores on all of their states. So obviously, China doesn't last long, and you already know what we'll do now that the war is over. We make them into a puppet state, and 70 days later, we integrate them into the Federation. Welcome to democracy. It is 1941, and we're easily the most powerful state in the entire world. No one comes even close to rivaling our potential, but still, there is more to gain. The Soviet Union is our next biggest enemy, primarily because we hate communism, so we declare war. I know this looks kinda bad to our Western friends, but trust me, we'll bail you out after we're done with the USSR. The Soviets can just barely survive the German invasion. Throw in all of Asia in the mix, and at that point, the only logical solution would be to surrender immediately. Once the country finally capitulates, we'll make sure to create a puppet state in Siberia and let it take as much land as possible. Now, as long as their new capital falls in Asia, that means that they are an Asian country, which we can now integrate and get all those extra cores. What is it with Axis countries having the most insane democratic paths? Hey Germany and Italy, are you ready? I guess you were not. And just like that, democracy has won. We let the Allies take a hold of Europe. We already got everything we wanted. I mean, just look at us. And after India declares independence, we'll just integrate them too. Now, even though we're all friends and working towards global peace, there is no denying that no one could ever even hope to oppose us. What we say goes. I'm sure the Allies and the USA are relieved that we are a peaceful democracy. Holding elections will be a nightmare though. In typical fashion, the liberals have let power slip into the hands of fascists. Even though they now have taken a stand against the army, it's too late. They obviously cannot be trusted with power ever again. Because communism isn't exactly popular in Japan right now, it takes much longer for our movement to gain any steam. When we are finally ready to launch the revolution in March of 1937, we'll find ourselves in the middle of a brutal three-way civil war with the army and the liberals. And this civil war is hard. But with the right preparations, you can pit the other two factions against each other and then swoop in to take everything. The People's Revolution has come to Japan. Now everyone knows that every communist path has two separate branches. In Japan's case, it's a choice between the more authoritarian lecture group and the more idealistic agrarian-focused labor-farmer faction. Let's go with the latter. In this path, we'll combine like every socialist adjacent ideology there is: anarchism, war communism, syndicalism, and Buddhist Socialism. And guess what? Buddhist Socialism will be the main direction of our country. If we choose this guy from the three candidates for leader and then hire two specific advisors, one of them can become the new ruler and unlock two hidden focuses. Now that we have finally set up the new state, we can actually start doing some stuff. We first demand submission from Taiwan and Palau. Then we can ignite a new civil war in Korea. Well, it's not much of a war, because these guys will take years before they train their first division, so we gotta help the commies a bit. Then we can invade Manchuria and end the oppressive Kwantung regime. But we're not here to reclaim our old colonies. We are here to give these lands to the Chinese Soviet Republic as a bribe, so that they'll join our faction, the Pan-Asian Revolutionary Front. And Xinjiang joins too. 3 communist nations, united as equals. Few months later, we establish a common currency between us all, which for some reason lets us integrate our allies' economies, which turns them into puppets. But we're all communists, so we're still technically equal. Now, our mission is to liberate the workers of China. As these two states haven't joined the Chinese United Front, we can easily take them out for some extra land before our big war. This is another pretty run-of-the-mill Sino-Japanese war, but now Communist China is on our side and we're starting in 1939. We're still weak as hell from the civil war, so don't expect any big offensives for a while. There is, however, a nice trick we can do. The nationalists control this fully surrounded port city. We can easily destroy all their divisions stationed there and then wait until they send more. This way, we can chip away dozens of Chinese divisions, which will significantly hasten our victory. When China is weak enough for us to push again, they start melting like butter, and the war is over in 1941. Since Communist China is our puppet, we can give everything to them, and that includes Xinjiang. Now we have a fully unified China as our puppet. Yeah, they're kinda scary, but as long as they remain a loyal subject, there is nothing that can go wrong. Now the focus path wants us to fight the Soviet Union and the US. It also wants us to liberate all of Southeast Asia, so I guess we gotta do all that. The Soviets are clearly the ones we should take on first, and we yet again have the option to do a conditional peace. So let's go. Man, I never want to fight in Siberia again. Finally, let's send them the peace offer, and they accept. Now all their allies want to become our puppets. So Mongolia, Tannu-Tuva and Japanese Russia will join our cause. Wait, what? Japanese Russia? The Soviets became our puppet and Germany got nothing?
Huh?
I'm pretty sure this is because when the Soviets agreed to our peace terms, all their allies in Asia get an event to become our puppets. And if the Soviet capital happens to be in Asia the moment they surrender, they too will become our puppet. Well, I'm sure that's intentional. So now, Japan, China and the Soviet Union are all together in an alliance. We have basically won, so let's just quickly take out the allies and then the United States. Now that we control all this, we can finally form. Wait, do we really need one state from Vichy France too? I guess we'll go to war with the Axis too. Okay, now that we control the whole world, we can finally proclaim the Buddhist utopia, the Pure Land. Beautiful. No new course, by the way. But we do get some pretty good buffs. Those will certainly be really useful at this point. Okay, time to try out the other communist path, the lecture group Ascendant. Now we must once again do tons of focuses before we can do anything fun. But we do get some nice industrial buffs and some bonuses to our intelligence agency. It's 1938 and we can finally reclaim our lost territories. But this time we only get war goals, so we'll invade Palau, Taiwan and Korea. Then we also take over Manchuria, and this time we'll be keeping all of it. You might be thinking that since we had our own faction in the previous path, this time we would be joining the Comintern. Well, you're wrong, because we actually won't be doing anything for years. After we reclaim our lost territories, we get war goals on all the non-aligned Chinese states. And to continue our focus path, we must first control all of China, so that's cool. And what's even cooler is the fact that the United Kingdom decided to guarantee the only 2 Chinese states not yet in a faction. But you know what? Maybe that isn't so bad. We could actually fight the Allies first, as beating them would give us tons of resources and open new fronts against China. So let's do that. We quickly take the 2 Chinese states and then invade British Malaya. This will boost our war effort immensely. Then we ask for military access from Germany and send our whole army to Europe. As Germany has already conquered France, all we have to do is to cross the English Channel and defeat the UK. After months of grueling fighting against the massive British army, they finally capitulate and the war is over. We'll do the classic split where we take all of Asia and the Pacific, while Germany and Italy get all of Europe and Africa. We'll make sure to take at least part of Canada, as that will be really useful in the future. Now we're better prepared than ever to take on China. In 1941. Yeah, we're starting so late that Communist China has already left the Chinese United Front and they're planning their own campaign against the nationalists. This would cause some issues as we have plans for all of China, so we'll have to manually justify a war goal on the communists too. At the same time, Germany invades the Soviet Union, and now the Soviets want us to join their faction. Sure, we'll join, but we won't help you deal with Germany. We're only joining so that Communist China can't, because we really don't want to fight the Soviets the same time we fight China. After a little over a year, the nationalists finally capitulate, and we annex everything. Now we can finally continue our focus tree, which lets us form the Pacific Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. And yet again, we can core all of Asia, but only one state at a time and with enough compliance, so it will take quite a lot of time. We are already really strong, but we have 2 more objectives: defeat the fake communists and liberate the Pacific from the Americans. Let's start with the Soviets, because if we wait for too long, Germany will just beat them and take everything. Before we declare war, we could poach Mongolia and Tannu to our new faction, the 5th Communist International. But since they are already at war with the Axis, that would just drag us into the war with them, so we'll be skipping that. After a few years of excruciating fighting in Siberia, the Soviet Union falls and we take as much as we can. Now only the US remains. While we were fighting the Soviets, we were also boosting communism in Latin America. We managed to instigate a few civil wars, but it doesn't really matter. We already have Canada, so we can just walk into America with our massive military, while occasionally nuking them. And there we go. The world has been split in 2. The European fascists and the Asian communists are ideological enemies, but at least for now, they are at peace. I do, however, have a hunch where a conflict between these 2 factions could start. But as both sides already have nuclear arsenals, we must ask ourselves, do we hate each other enough to risk the destruction of the world? Yes, we do. So, that was Japan, and I gotta say, after all this, it's gotta be one of my favorite countries in the game. Basically all the paths are really fun, and while Japan is really strong, it's not too overpowered. There are some small bugs that should be fixed, but they won't ruin your game or anything like that. Thanks again to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. Make sure to check out War Thunder for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox or mobile, with my links in the description or the pinned comment. Those who are new or haven't played in the last 6 months will also receive a massive bonus pack on PC and consoles, including multiple premium vehicles, boosters and more. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.